Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Congresswoman Shontel Brown, we are thrilled to welcome you to today's OH-11 Grants webinar. Today, we're going to explore the pivotal roles and incredible funding opportunities offered by the National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Endowment for the Arts. Before we begin, we have a special message from the Congresswoman that we would like to play.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Shontel Brown. I want to welcome you to our grants webinar. One of my top priorities in Congress is making sure that Northeast Ohio receives the federal funding that we deserve, from grants for the biggest infrastructure projects to small business loans. And I want you to know that my office is here to help. And we're bringing the agencies to you so you can get the information straight from the source. So whether you're a homeowner or nonprofit or faith leader or small business owner or work in local government, grants are available. I hope that this webinar answers some of your questions and points you in the right direction. As always, if you need help with grants, casework, or legislation, please call my office at 216-522-4900. Thank you, and let's get started.
Excellent. Thank you. So we are honored to have the distinguished representatives from the NEH and NEA with us today. They will share their insights and the vital support that their organizations provide to scholars, artists, cultural institutions all across our nation. Today, we're joined by Allison Scher, the Director of Congressional Affairs for the National Endowment for the Humanities, and Ben Kessler, the Director of Congressional Affairs for the National Endowment for the Humanities. These two agencies have been instrumental in shaping the cultural fabric of our society through their commitment to fostering creativity, scholarship, and understanding of the arts and humanities. Today's event is a fantastic opportunity for everyone to learn more about the NEH and the NEA and what they can do to support your projects and help bring your innovative ideas to life. During the webinar, we encourage you to ask questions. And the way that you can do that is you can put your questions in the chat. We will have a question and answer portion, which we will try and get to them. So thank you again. And without further ado, please welcome Allison, who will share more about the NEH. So take it away.
Thanks, Jared. Pull up my slides. Are we good?
We are good.
Grand. Well, thank you all for being here today. Thanks to Representative Brown and her wonderful staff for putting on today's grants webinar. Ben and I really do enjoy talking about all of the opportunities that are available through our respective agencies for cultural entities, especially those in the Cleveland area. So my name's Allison Scher. I'm the Director of Congressional Affairs for NEH. And today I'm just going to give you a really top-level overview of the types of projects we fund and where you can find more information on each of our specific grant lines. Oops, sorry. Generally, the first question I get on my work is from my friends, sadly, is kind of what are the humanities? This slide here shows you a general laundry list of topics that are covered under the humanities. This is from our founding legislation passed by Congress in 1965. But really, I think the best way to talk about the humanities is through the projects that we fund. From museum exhibits to podcasts to books to teacher training. We fund projects ranging from the scholarly, which includes monographs, books, archives, scholarly translations, to the popular, including museum exhibitions, tours of historic places, documentary films, television, radio, digital programs, including podcasts. We make grant awards in support of seminars for school teachers and college faculty. We also make awards to institutions such as libraries, historical societies, museums, and universities to help build their humanities capacity. NEH supports 56 state and jurisdictional humanities councils around the country, with 40% of our programmatic funding going to those councils. including Ohio Humanities. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. When I talk about humanities, this is really kind of how I like to think about it. They are the examined life of our nation, the good, the bad, the difficult, and the beautiful. And today, really what I want you to take away is that everything I'm going to talk about today is on our website, www.neh.gov. We have a number of different grant programs, and they are very competitive. But hopefully after today, you'll feel confident in your ability to apply for our grants, and you really won't ever get one if you don't apply. The notice of funding opportunity, which are our guidelines for each of our grant lines, are on our website. And I'll show you in a little bit where those are located. And that really has the nitty-gritty in the weeds of how to put together an application that will be successful. And then finally, we are a very approachable agency. There are contact information throughout our website for program officers. And they really do want to talk to you about your project. They want to make sure you're applying for the right grant and that you really are confident in your application that you send. This is very touchy. Sorry about that. Generally from the top, who's eligible for our grants? So NEH has two different categories of grants. We have institutional grants, and these will go to 501c3 nonprofits. These are historical societies, museums, the like. We can also fund nonprofit institutes of higher education. And we also have several grant lines that are international in scope and encourage collaboration. However, the primary applicant needs to be a US-based institution. We also fund individuals. Those mostly are found through our division of research. And you can either be an institutionally affiliated or an independent scholar with a history of publication. So these types of grants will go towards our summer stipend grant for professors that want to just not teach over the summer and take some time to work on their book, to year-long or two-year-long grants to fund the research and the writing of books. We have almost 50 grant programs, depending on how you look at it, offering grants as small as $6,000 and as large as potentially up to $1 million. So you might feel a bit overwhelmed when trying to find the right program for your project. But one way to think about it is to think about the audience for your work and your project, and then look at those grants from the appropriate division. This is just a slide to give you a little cheat sheet overview. For example, if your project is serving the general public, like museum visitors or people that enjoy documentaries, that's going to be under our Division of Public Programs. If your project is aimed at improving your collection, if you're a historical society or a small museum, and you really want to, you need a new HVAC system, you need new climate-controlled glass so that you can improve access. That's going to be under our Division of Preservation and Access. Classroom-focused work at the higher institution level is through our Division of Education Programs. Whereas if you're doing research or writing, that's under Division of Research. If you are creating or exploring new digital technology, that's going to be in our Office of Digital Humanities. And if you're looking to address the changing climate's impact on your organization or your municipality, look to our Office of Challenge Programs. Our Office of Challenge Program is also our only grant line that requires a match. The vast majority of our grants are straight money out the door, but the Office of Challenge does require a match. And that match depends on the size of the entity that you are, as well as the size of the grant that you're requesting. The seventh division is our Office of State and Federal Partnership. They do play a vital role in funding of the 56 state and jurisdictional humanities councils, including, as I mentioned, Ohio Humanities. OhioHumanities.org. Take a look. I've highlighted a few of their grant lines. This is federal money available at the state level. So I do encourage you to take a look there and see if potentially an Ohio Humanities grant fits more of your project needs better. Again, we are here to help. They are here to help you. We just want to make sure that federal funding at all levels is available to you. So when you think about how do I find out specific grant information, NEH.gov, this is an older screenshot of our homepage, but you'll see I've got a little circle there under grants, and that's really where you're going to find all the information you need. So if you click on the grants, you'll see under the main page a list of our divisions and offices within NEH. And then if you click on divisions and offices, it'll pull up little short snapshots of what each of our divisions and offices cover and the types of projects that they fund. So again, think about your project, think about who your audience is and what the output is, and then you can go from there in terms of narrowing down. Under each of our divisions and offices, they'll pull up and they have on the right side all of their grant lines that they offer through their specific division. Again, we have almost 50 grant lines, so there's going to be a lot that show up. And if you click on this, for example, this is our Dangers and Opportunities of Technology grant line through our Office of Digital Humanities. And this is really where you're going to find your main information, including the maximum amount of your award, what the output should be, how long the grant period is, and most importantly, when the application is due. And if you scroll down through the page itself, you'll see reminders, tips, and oftentimes you'll see a recorded presentation from the specific program officer that runs that grant line. That will give you all the weedy information that you need in terms of information about how to apply. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see our application package, as well as successful narratives from previous applicants, so you can model your own application off of it. And then finally at the bottom, you'll see our program statistics. And I only highlight this because I want to make sure that folks do understand it is competitive, but we really do provide a lot of resources to make sure that you can put together the most successful application possible. We have way more demand than we are able to meet. So we really encourage you to reach out to program officers, ask the questions, and make sure that you put together the best application possible. I'm not going to read through these tips, but I do want to highlight one tip for you. On the bottom row in the middle, most of our grant lines have draft deadlines for applications. So for example, about 2 months ahead of the final deadline, there'll be a draft deadline. You can send in your application as you have it so far and get real-time feedback from program officers about areas in your application that you need to strengthen or areas they want to see built out a little bit better. And that can really help you when it comes time to putting together the best final that you can. We also provide reviewers' comments. Our grants all go through an outside peer review panel process. So experts in the field of the grant line get together and they review all of the applications. They have hours-long discussions about all of the applications, their merits, which ones are the best, where there are weaknesses, and they provide written feedback. And if you are turned down, or even if you are successful, requesting the reviewer's comments can really give you a good idea about how the reviewers see your application. If you do get turned down, get those comments. Reach out to a program officer, and most importantly, reapply. We are always looking for panelists as well. It's a great way to see how the sausage is made in terms of funding of grants and which applications rise to the top. So I encourage you to sign up if you're interested in applying to be a panelist. And then finally, just stay in touch with us. This is my email. I'll also drop it in the chat. We have newsletters from all of our divisions. We have a nice social media presence. reach out anytime with questions. We really are here to help, to try to demystify and make this as painless as possible, understanding that federal grant making is not always the easiest of hurdles to clear. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and I will turn it over to my colleague at the NEA, Ben.
Thanks so very much, Allison. We're gonna, as I've said repeatedly, Allison is far more technologically competent, and the kind folks with the Congresswoman are sharing my slides. So as those get loaded, just a real profound thank you to the Congresswoman for all she does for the arts and culture in the district and across the country, and of course to Jared, to Jasmine, everyone on the Congresswoman's team for bringing us together today. Just the next slide, please. So the goal today is not only to provide a deep dive into the NEA funding opportunities, but as Allison just touched on, we really want to demystify the grant making process here at the NEA. Along the way, you'll see organizations from your community who have received grants from the NEA recently. And whether you're a seasoned grant writer or applying with us for the first time, regardless of the size of your organization, we really want you to leave this meeting knowing that an NEA grant is within your reach and that you have the technical assistance tools you need when applying with us. Really just to emphasize what Allison said, it's so important that you stay in touch with us. There's no need to leave this conversation thinking that you didn't have the opportunity to ask a question. I'll make sure my contact information is available in the chat. As I often joke, I find that our contact information is almost too easy to find on our website at arts.gov. So you can look up my contact information if for some reason you don't have it. You can look up a discipline-specific, an artistic discipline-specific colleague of mine, their contact information on our website. You can get in touch with me to be in touch with that person. You can reach out to the Congresswoman's office. Long story short, be in touch. It's so important for your success when applying with us. So next slide, please. So our chair, Maria Rosario Jackson, has implored us to continue to strengthen our work with communities across the country, which is why I'm really excited to be joining this conversation. And since you all are here, I trust that you know a little bit about the National Endowment for the Arts, but just a quick word about who we are. We're a federal agency and the largest funder of the arts and arts education in communities nationwide, and a catalyst for public and private support for the arts. Next slide, please. So with the support from Congress and arts champions like Congresswoman Brown, the NEA is able to fund organizations directly at the federal level and in partnership with the 6 regional arts organizations and 56 state and jurisdictional arts agencies, as well as at the local level. We couldn't do this work without those with the greatest knowledge and proximity to their communities. And that's why 40% of our grant-making dollars flow through the regional arts organizations and the state arts agencies. When you're considering applying for federal funding, take a look at the opportunities available with the Ohio Arts Council, and we hope that you'll consider applying at every level. Next slide, please. So this slide is really just a visual representation of what I just mentioned, and really just to encourage you to consider applying at the state level. As Allison touched on, the grant making process for federal funds is highly competitive, and we want you to have the greatest opportunity to receive those funds. So with the Congresswoman's support, 40% of all federal funds of our grant making dollars is awarded at the regional and state level. So be sure to check out those opportunities and make sure that you're applying again at every level. Next slide, please. So there are certain requirements you must meet in order to be eligible for an NEA grant. You have to be a nonprofit at the time of application, a unit of state or local government, or a federally recognized tribal community or tribe, again, at the time of applying. You must have a 3-year history of arts programming. So that's important to note because you don't have to be an arts organization. Your primary mission doesn't have to be arts focused. It's simply that you have 3 years of arts programming history. It doesn't have to be the last 3 years or 3 consecutive years. It's just that you have some track record of arts programming. You must also provide a 1-to-1 cost share match of non-federal funds. And this can be achieved in a variety of ways, including earned or donated income. And the match can also be a combination of those sources. Really a great reason to be in touch with us. If you hear that about the non-federal match requirement and it's a little daunting, I would understand why. We want to be creative and make sure that the federal match is not a barrier to entry for you. You don't have to demonstrate your ability or the source of the match at the time of application. That's simply part of the grants management process. But if you do have any questions, happy to take them here or to be in touch after the presentation. And for previous grant recipients, you must be in compliance with reporting requirements for previous NEA awards. Next slide, please. So our funding supports arts projects or programming. On the left side of the screen, you'll see the types of organizations that are eligible to apply for funding. Eligibility, again, is open to tax-exempt organizations, including federally registered 501c3s, units of state or local government, including local arts agencies and educational institutions, federally recognized tribal communities and tribes. And it's important to note that for K through 12 school districts are eligible for funding, but not individual schools themselves. On the right side of the screen, you'll see examples of things we're not able to fund, which include general operating support, individual artists, with the exception of fellowships in literature and our 2 honorific programs, commercial activities, as well as fiscal sponsors. The full list of items we do not fund is published in our guidelines and on our website at arts.gov. So next slide, please. So these are the different types of funding categories we offer at the NEA. NEA has funding opportunities for organizations that include grants for arts projects, Challenge America, Our Town, and our research grants. These are the largest grants that we offer, and nonprofit organizations receive the bulk of our direct funding through these programs. Grants for individuals, again, are limited to our literary fellowships, as well as our 2 honorific programs. That's the NEA Jazz Masters Fellowship, which is recognition, a lifetime achievement recognition for jazz artists, as well as for folk and traditional artists through the National Heritage Fellowship Program. Generally, you can submit 1 application per year per organization. However, there are some exceptions to that rule, so make sure to check out our guidelines for any clarity. Next slide, please. So just walking through those grant opportunities, Challenge America, we really like to think of as an entry point to the NEA and federal funding. In order to be eligible, you must not have received NEA funding within the last 3 years. And Challenge America is designed to support small organizations that extend their reach to arts populations that are historically underserved. All grantees must address how their organizations or audience has been underserved. This is defined by our legislation and agency policy and refers to those whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited by geography, ethnicity, economics, or disability. All awards are $10,000 and do require that 1-to-1 cost share match. Around the Challenge America deadline, which is typically around this month, the deadline just passed, unfortunately, there's an abbreviated application process as well as robust technical assistance. But really, this information is evergreen. So if you're considering applying to Challenge America, this information will be relevant next time around. So the Our Town program provides support for creative placemaking projects. So you might be asking yourself, as I did when I first joined the NEA a few years ago, what do we mean by creative placemaking? The most simple definition is about strengthening local communities through arts and culture. Creative placemaking is when arts, culture, and design activities are deliberately integrated into efforts that strengthen communities. And successful Our Town projects ultimately lay the groundwork for systemic changes that sustain the integration of arts, culture, and design into local strategies. There are some additional requirements for the Our Town program. Eligibility does require a partnership between a nonprofit and a local government. These grants range from $25,000 to $150,000 and do require that 1-to-1 cost share match. The guidelines are typically posted in May of each year with a deadline in August. Next slide, please. So the largest program we have, our flagship program really at the NEA, is grants for arts projects and what most people think of when they think of an NEA award. Applications are submitted to one of our 15 artistic disciplines. If you're an organization that straddles artistic disciplines, as we know so many do, great reason to get in touch with us. We want to make sure that your application is received by the team where it's going to be strongest, and my colleagues can talk to each other and direct your application again where they think it'll be received most favorably. We have deadlines in February and upcoming in July of each year. Funding is available for all stages of the artistic process, and that can include creation, presentation, and exhibition, arts education and enrichment, as well as services to the arts sector, such as conferences and professional development. All grants, again, require a 1-to-1 cost share match, and awards range from $10,000 to $100,000. And depending on your project or your budget size, important to keep in mind that the project timeline can be for up to 2 years. Next slide, please. So like Allison, really encourage you to check out our website again at arts.gov and all of the applicant resources we have available. Around deadlines, we consistently have a number of different webinars, open what we like to call office hours, in which people can just drop by a Zoom call like this one. No need to participate. You can listen in if you'd like. Opportunity to meet some of my colleagues who are working more closely with the grant making process. Again, get in touch with us. Again, our contact information is readily available, and I'll put mine in the chat. And browse sample project narratives and applications that were recently successful when applying for an NEA grant. And also would encourage you, if you're not successful, get in touch with us. All applicants are entitled to receive panel feedback. So our panels are made up of experts in the specific artistic discipline, as well as one layperson. And it's an opportunity, again, to connect with NEA staff and to learn where a panel might have questions or where they thought an application might be a little stronger. Next slide, please. So I'll make the same pitch as Allison did, apply to be a panelist. It's a great networking opportunity, meet your fellow panelists and people in your artistic discipline, as well as the opportunity to engage with NEA staff. It's also, we've heard from folks, a good opportunity to see the other side of the application process. We have heard of folks who were not successful for the first time around, served on one of our panels and understood a little more about what goes into the panel review process and what other panelists might be looking for. To really encourage you to check that out. Congress requires panelists to review applications for artistic excellence and artistic merit. We understand that that means different things to different people in different communities throughout the country. So if you're thinking that you're a member of a certain demographic, where you might live, your artistic discipline is underrepresented here at the NEA, great reason to serve on a panelist and making sure that representation happens during the application review process. So thank you for considering that. And next slide, please. So really just encourage you to be in touch with us in all different ways, and that includes following us on all sorts of social media platforms. We also have our general Arts Matter newsletter at arts.gov, and many of my colleagues have artistic discipline specific newsletters. It's really just stay in touch with us. Great way to know about deadlines, different resources that they have available during the application process. My colleagues do a pretty good job at not spamming anyone, and just the essential information when thinking about your interest at the NEA. So just with that, happy to pause and turn it back over to the Congresswoman's office and take questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Allison and Ben. I know I learned a lot more about the NEH and the NEA from this, and hopefully all of our participants and attendees did as well. Excuse me. So as previously mentioned, all the presentations that were presented today, we do have PDFs for attendees. If you're interested in reviewing this, you can email me and I'll send them to you, or this whole grant webinar is going to be recorded and on our website as well that you can follow up on. So we are going to go ahead and move into the question and answer period. So the first question that we have is coming actually to the NEH. So Allison, you're going to be first up on this one. Can you tell us what is left in your current cycle's evaluation process, and what is there a timeline for its completion?
Can you repeat that question again, Jared?
Sure.
I feel like I'm in an oral exam right now.
No. What is left in your current cycle's evaluation process for anything that has come in previously? And do you have like a good timeline on its completion?
So I'm guessing the question is about what grants we have open.
Yeah.
And with so many grant lines, we have a lot of open grants right now. Nope, I have moved my magazine because of course I did. If you go to our website, www.neh.gov, you can actually click on the little grants tab up top that I talked about. And there's a nice big fat gray button in the middle of that page called Search All Grant Programs. And you click that, and that's going to come up with all of our current funding opportunities that are open. I'm happy to share my screen, Jared, if you would like, so they can see exactly what I'm talking about. Sure. That might honestly be the easiest. So let me just share my screen again really quick. So I'll just take us back. This is our homepage right here. And then you can see grants right up top here. And then this nice big gray button, Search All Grant Programs. And then you scroll down and you'll see all of our current open grant lines, upcoming deadlines. I'm not kidding when I said we have a ton of grants. So these are all of them. And again, if you click each of these grants, it'll take you to that delightful page that I was talking about where you have your snapshot, all about the news information in the cycle. You have your webinars available and all the steps to make sure that you apply properly. So there you go. Hopefully that will help.
Excellent. Thank you. And actually, just a quick follow-up question to that end. So if someone is awarded a grant from the NEH, are they allowed to receive NEH funding 2 years in a row?
Yes. Yes,
Good.
we have a lot of applicants that come back for the same grant several times, that they get it awarded once and the project isn't quite finished. You just have to make sure you're not, well, take a look at the guidelines to make sure that you're fulfilling the requirements. But, and you can also, for the same project, have an NEH grant. Potentially there might be an NEA component depending on what it looks like, but you can also apply for at the state level as well. You just can't double fund the same specific part of your project. But we understand that a lot of projects require multiple sources of funding. So having an NEH grant is not discounting your ability to apply for other types of funding.
That's great. Thank you. So our next question is more of a process question, and this is for the both of you. So if you could speak a little to your application process. Allison, you had mentioned that there were draft deadlines in your application process. If the both of you can just give a quick overview of like what your application process looks like, and also, are there any common pitfalls or frequent mistakes that applicants should avoid in the application process?
I'm happy to jump in since Allison was just doing
Techie things.
a lot. So I think, so generally speaking, it's a two-step process, which is not uncommon for federal awards. The first step, and it's all outlined depending on the grant opportunity that you're interested in, what those two deadlines are. The first one is typically just organizational information, and essentially you're signaling your intent to apply. And then that second step is really your application narrative and gets into the nitty-gritty that would set you apart from other applicants. Again, all of that information is available on our website at arts.gov. So I think those are two things to keep in mind. And also just thinking about at that stage, what are the common pitfalls? It's making sure that we're avoiding any technical mishaps. So as folks I hope know, in order to be eligible for federal funding, you have to apply through the same portal across government at grants.gov, and just making sure that all of that information, that you're ready to go, your login. So that does take a significant amount of time. So even if you're looking at the NEA or NEH and you think, oh, I'm not going to apply until a summer deadline, if you haven't applied for federal funds before, would really encourage you just to take a look at that and understand all the technical hoops that you do have to jump through. It's not insignificant. We hope that there are no barriers, but it's always unfortunate when someone is trying to apply at the last minute and we hear about an internet outage, or there's some issue that would keep you from clicking submit. And that's always the worst when you have everything else ready to go. So just, have all that prepared. So it's that two-step process. Once you submit your application to the NEA, it goes through the panel review. Again, for most of our awards, they're directed to a specific artistic discipline, and you choose that at the time of application. At that time, once they're reviewed, they're then recommended for funding. And once that recommendation is made, they move to the National Council on the Arts, which is a group of presidential appointees confirmed by the United States Senate, who review all applications, and then those are finally approved by our chair. And then at that time, you would receive notice of the status of your application. So that's kind of a bit soup to nuts, probably leaving out some details, but hopefully that's enough to get you started on thinking about NEA awards.
I would say our process is pretty similar. Again, I echo Ben with start early. Take advantage of our draft deadline if you can. Submit early if possible, because we've seen the hiccups happen, and it's an unfortunate thing to happen because you worked very hard on the grant application itself. I will also say that kind of once the application comes in, the staff do sort of first cut on eligibility, and that's where the details that are found in our guidelines, the notice of funding opportunity, really come to play. So for example, something as simple as we have asked for 1-page PDF and you put in a 3-page Word document, you're gonna get kicked out from the beginning. You really have to follow the guidelines, and it's a way just to make sure everything is aligned up front the same way. And then we also have the panel review process. Each different grant line has at least one, potentially more panels, depending on the number of applications that are received. So those panelists are made up of 3 to 5 individuals, again, experts in the field that review, and they make their recommendations. Staff discuss internally, figure out the budget, make the final recommendations to the council, and the council our council meets 3 times a year. They meet in March, July, and November to review grants that have fallen within those grant deadlines. And they discuss, they can flag applications, they have conversations about the grants that have been recommended, and then they make their final recommendations to the chair, who has final authority. Our National Council is also 26 members, Senate confirmed, presidentially appointed. But again, the program officers are there to help. If you have questions during the process, please, 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 please reach out. No need to spend all that time working and not have all the details quite right.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, to that end, when I'm talking to people about, the grant process, one thing I always like to underscore is that please feel free to reach out to the people from the agencies who are around that application process, because they can answer so many wonderful questions. And I know our office will try to do our best to get you in touch with those folks. So next question, moving on here. This one is more for Ben. With the NEA, what are some opportunities for emerging artists or smaller like theater nonprofits?
Sure. So starting with the second part of the question, thinking about smaller volunteer-run organizations that have arts programming, consider our Challenge America program, which is again that flat $10,000 award, and is the application process requires the organization to either self-identify as historically underserved or the community that you serve is historically underserved. And again, that's defined in our authorizing legislation by Congress, and includes, a range of, it's a broad definition that includes race, ethnicity, geography, and disability, among other things. So just check that out if that seems right for you. I'd also encourage you to look at the opportunities. If a $10,000 award, we recognize that if you're particularly small, a $10,000 award might not make the most sense for your organization or the programming that you have in mind. And so the opportunities at the state level in Ohio, and again, with federal funds made possible with the Congresswoman's support, take a look at the opportunities at the state level. Often the things that are happening there as well at the local level sometimes are smaller in size. When it comes to individual artists, the NEA is unable to fund individual artists directly, and that's again mandated by Congress in our authorizing legislation. But we are proud of the impact that we make with individual artists as organizations who receive NEA funding can use federal funds for things like artist fees and making sure artists are paid as they should be. So just thinking about, and I'm unfamiliar, I have to admit, with the eligibility requirements at the state level in Ohio, but some state arts agencies do have programs available for funds for individual artists. So take a look, state allocated dollars. So make sure that you take a look at the opportunities. If you're an individual artist looking for grants, take a look at what's available at the state and local level as well.
Great. Thank you. Excellent. All right. So one other question that was posed around somewhat the application process. Thinking about newer organizations that are interested in applying for funds that have not done so in the past. I believe in both of your presentations, you had mentioned about resources that would be available, such as I guess previous presentations or other like narratives that have been successful in the past. I was wondering if you can talk to our folks about those resources and if there are any other resources for first timers who are applying.
Yeah, we actually, when you have decided which grant you want to apply for, some of our smaller grants that are a little bit more accessible to small organizations, our Preservation and Access PAG grant for small institutions is actually a really good place to start in terms of small institutions that have never applied before. We have webinars available that can really talk through the nuts and bolts of application. Again, program officers want to help. And the sample narratives really can give you a good idea of what a successful application narrative has looked like in the past. I will say one, especially for first-time applicants or people that have tried before and been unsuccessful, I have sat in as I can as a member of staff for NEH. I've sat in on a number of panels, and one ding that happens a lot for applicants is that they don't emphasize the humanities content of their project nearly enough. Just because you may have some sort of like history organization name, that has not told our panel why your project that you're applying for is important for the humanities. And that's something that really comes through in successful application narratives. My collection of dresses from this one random family in the 17th century that settled in, what is now downtown Cleveland. We need a new HVAC system to make sure that the moths aren't getting in. Tell us why that's important to the humanities. Explain, explain, explain. And if you think you've done enough, do it again, just to make sure. So I would, for first-time applicants, reach out, read those narratives, and make sure you're really emphasizing the humanities content of whatever project it is that you're looking for funding.
And just on the NEA side, again, as Allison did, just encourage you to check out the resources we have available in the different events. So when taking a look at a grant opportunity on our website at arts.gov, on the left side of the screen, you'll see the opportunity to click applicant resources. So with that, you'll see other events similar to this one, webinars, again, those open office hours, opportunity to drop in, ask questions, listen in, check out past narratives. Again, if you're not successful, I think what we want to make sure that we're doing, and we're doing our job, is if you're not successful, do you feel like you have the opportunity to succeed next time? And do you feel like you have the ability to do so? We understand it requires a lot to apply for federal funds, but we want to make sure that you know that you're not discouraged by this process. So if you're not successful for the first time around, that you get in touch with us, that you learn about panel feedback and the questions that a panel may have had. I think for smaller organizations and potentially first-time applicants, one thing that I've heard when I've sat on during the panel review process is, does your budget size align with the amount of money you're asking for? That is, does it feel as though that this work is really in the realm of the possible? If you have, asking for more than your annual budget will raise some questions about, not that you're not capable, but they'll just have some questions, right? About does this award size really make sense for this organization? So just consider, as Allison emphasized on the humanities side, remember that the panelists can only review your application. They're not permitted to go outside the application. They're, by design, they're not supposed to be looking at your organization website or bringing in, oh, I understand this organization does great work and I want to support them. You're being evaluated, as Allison touched on, by the need for uniformity in the applications for what's on the page. So really just making sure that comes through and that there's an understanding of what this work is. And again, how I think, how it serves your community. Artistic excellence and artistic merit, as I mentioned, means different things to different people. And it means something different to the people of the Congresswoman's district. So having that come across, and again, as Allison touched on, why this work matters, not just to the country generally, bring in your community and why it matters, and to the people that you're serving.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So we're going to end with one last question here for our question and answer period. And for all of our attendees, if your questions were not answered or your topic wasn't spoken about during this period, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I will try and get Ben and Allison some questions later on. But our last question that we're going to go here is, Ben, you had shared, and this is a question for both of you, but Ben, you had shared some organizations in the past that have been successful here in our area, receiving federal funding. For the both of you, what are some common qualities in the projects that have been successful?
I'll say that when I was preparing for this webinar and looking up the history in the district, it's, as I think folks know, it's rich in arts and culture. So I don't know if there's one common through line. I'd probably have to dive a little deeper to see that, but just thinking about successful applications, I think it's ones that really make clear the importance, similar to what Allison was touching on. Why is this work important and how does it serve your community? Don't assume, as Allison said, because, thinking about the music discipline, for example, that you're performing a great work and it's a symphony and it's a world-class symphony, and, and that in itself is important. Potentially think about, is this a work that people in your community wouldn't otherwise have access to? Is it something that touches on, a priority of the NEA at this moment? So I would encourage you to take a look at our website and understand that a little bit more, but thinking about the integration of arts and health, things that our country is faced with on a day-to-day basis beyond just traditional spaces in arts and culture. And that you're talking to people in your artistic discipline. Those panel reviews, they know your discipline. Don't take anything for granted about that they will assume anything in your application, but also that they know what's going on in your field. So I say that to say, you know, they'll have some understanding of what's new, what's been done before, what's innovative, what maybe they've seen a lot of recently. And I think, you know, use that to your advantage, but also keep in mind, you know, who your audience is. And really, I think just, you know, centering your community, centering the Congresswoman's district about why, you know, these are taxpayer dollars. How does this work benefit the public?
I would say for the grants that we have given out recently in the district, when you'll see a few of the grantees in my slides as well. Cleveland State has received several grants, Ursuline College, but also a really small organization that got one of the PAG grants that I was talking about, the International Women's Air and Space Museum, which has a small collection, and they needed some funding to help preserve their collection. So we gave them, it was almost, I think it was a 9,000 plus grant. So really one of our smaller grants, but meaningful for that size of organization. And I would echo Ben, the common thread is that all of them made a successful case as to why their project was important for the humanities. And that is the only common thread, because the ones at the university were professors writing all types of books. So there isn't really, in terms of the projects don't look the same, but they all made a successful case as to the importance of their project in terms of advancing or promoting humanities.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Allison. You've been wonderful panelists, and yeah, as I mentioned to everyone before, if your question did not appear here in this answer period, let me know. We'll follow up. But I know I learned a lot more today, so thank you. Some programming news before we get out of here. This grant webinar is one in a series of webinars focused on grants. Next month, in May 30th, we're going to be joined with our friends over at the National Science Foundation, who will come on and talk about some of the innovative grants that they offer to our districts. Following that, in the months after that, we are looking at the National Park Service, the Department of Defense, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HHS. So main plug, if any of you is interested in federal funding and you have other projects, or you know people in the community who are looking for federal funding, please let them know that they can contact the Congresswoman's office, and also, to jump on these grant webinars. So just be on the lookout, and you can find out more information about our upcoming events on our website, chantelbrown.house.gov. So with that, we'll look to close here. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to Allison and Ben. You've been wonderful. To close, we would just like to share two important points. First, whether you're a constituent or a small business owner or a nonprofit director or work in local government, we want you to know that we are here for you. Grants, letters of support, casework, we're here. And we want to be seen as a help desk when it comes to our federal agencies, and this is a priority for our office. So if you have any questions, you can email me. Again, my name is Jared Sherman, and you can email me at Jared, Jared, .Sherman, SHERMAN, at mail, that's mail.house.gov, or you can call our office at area code 216-522-4900. So if you have any questions, please reach out, let us know, and let us assist you. Thank you all again for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jared.